Captain Ibrahim Traore has displayed a strong commitment to his people and his nation Burkina Faso. He comes from a humble background, which allowed him to develop a deep empathy for the challenges faced by Burkinabe citizens. These challenges include political, economic, social, and cultural problems that affect the lives of the people of Burkina Faso. He has done another fascinating thing that has left people talking worldwide. President Ibrahim Traore has approved and revised a family code that criminalizes homosexuality. This decision makes Burkina Faso one of the 22 out of 54 African countries that do not allow same-sex relationships, with severe penalties such as life imprisonment or termination of victims in some regions. This is why today we shall be looking at how President Ibrahim Traore is handling the act and queer community in his country. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel for more interesting content like this. Burkina Faso has joined Uganda, which enacted one of the harshest anti-LGBTQ laws globally. Uganda adopted legislation to further the crackdown on the community, despite strong condemnation from local rights groups and Western powers like the US. During a recent meeting held by government leaders in Ouagadougou, ministers agreed that the act and related practices will henceforth be punishable by law. Although the specific penalties were not outlined, the text is yet to be approved by the deputies of the Transitional Legislative Assembly. It is important to note that the act was frowned upon in the socially conservative West African state, but it was never outlawed. The military seized power in Burkina Faso in 2022 and has pivoted towards Russia, after drastically reducing ties with former colonial power, France. Note that homosexual acts were decriminalized in Russia in 1993, but President Vladimir Putin's government has been cracking down on it, including banning what it calls propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations. The decision to outlaw the act in Burkina Faso is part of an overhaul of its marriage legislation. The new law, which still needs to be passed by the military-controlled parliament and signed off by Captain Traore, only recognizes religious and customary marriages. Unlike in many former British African colonies, Burkina Faso didn't inherit anti-homosexuality laws after independence from France in 1960. Many Africans have been taking a tougher stand against queer community in recent years. About 2 months ago, Uganda's constitutional court upheld a tough new anti-gay law that allows for the death penalty to be introduced for aggravation in the act, which includes frigging with someone of the same sex below the age of 18, or when someone is infected with a lifelong illness such as HIV. The preliminary draft of the new Code of Persons and Family in Burkina Faso, dubbed CPF, that was presented by the Minister of Justice, Idaso Rodrigue Bayala, earlier this month, takes into account cultural realities, including changes in name and nationality forfeiture for actions against national interest. The CPF sets the minimum marriage age in Burkina Faso at 18, with exceptions at 16 with judicial. Another significant step taken by the Traore government in the fight against the act and its community is the establishment of the National Identification Coordination Authority. This new structure that is attached to the presidency will manage the strategic plan for a cohesive national identification system. They will ensure the interoperability of all identification initiatives and propose modernization strategies. In August last year, Burkina Faso's Higher Communication Council banned the broadcasting of television channels that promote homosexuality in the country. Officials of the council reported that the step was to protect kids and ensure that television channels created for children and adolescents were free from queer scenes. Some activists say they would appeal against the ruling. The announcement by Burkina Faso's government has drawn significant international attention and criticism, particularly from Western countries that advocate for gay rights. The potential implications for foreign aid and international relations are substantial. Some human rights organizations and advocacy groups for the act are expecting to challenge the new legislation in Burkina Faso, both domestically and internationally. Bear in mind that the World Bank has offered new loans to President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda to fight against queer acts. Meanwhile, the US has stopped giving Ugandan goods preferential access to its markets following the adoption of the legislation last year. Museveni has defended his country's legislation, which preserves traditional family values, adding that Uganda will not allow the West to dictate it. In Ghana, the parliament passed a tough new bill in February that imposed a prison sentence of up to 3 years for anyone convicted or identified as gay. However, President Nana Akufo-Addo has not signed it into law. He says he will wait for the courts to rule on its constitutionality. The Ghanaian Ministry of Finance has warned that if the bill becomes law, the country could lose close to $4 billion from World Bank funding over the next 5 to 6 years. As you may already know, Ghana is undergoing a major economic crisis. That is why she received a bailout from the International Monetary Fund last year. A series of African countries have decriminalized the act, including Gabon, Mauritius, Angola, Lesotho, Equatorial Guinea, Sao Tome and Principe, Seychelles, Botswana, and Mozambique. The impact on Burkina Faso's international relations, particularly with Western nations and key financial institutions, remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the country has embarked on a path that will likely lead to significant domestic and international consequences. Burkina Faso has been under military rule since 2 successive coups in 2022, and is part of a confederation with military leaders in neighboring Mali and Niger. All 3 interim governments have so far failed to hold elections, and are adopting all possible measures to wipe out any Western culture and influence. In 2019, Burkina Faso, under President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, passed a new penal code that criminalized consensual same-sex activity. The law imposed prison sentences of 1 to 3 years and fines for people found guilty of same-sexual relations. Human rights groups strongly condemned the law as a violation of personal freedoms and fundamental human rights. Since the law was enacted, there have been reports of queer people in Burkina Faso facing increasing harassment, abuse, and violence. Many have gone into hiding or fled the country out of fear of arrest and persecution. The criminalization has also hindered access to health care and other social services for practitioners and their communities. Burkina Faso's criminalization of the act represents a serious setback for these people's rights in the country and the region. It is seen as a retrograde step by human rights organizations working to promote equality and non-discrimination worldwide. Here are a few reasons why some African countries, including Burkina Faso, have criminalized the act. First, many African societies have deep-rooted traditional and religious beliefs that view the act as unnatural or immoral. This leads to strong social stigma and pressure to conform to heteronormative gender roles. Secondly, many African nations inherited anti-sodomy laws from their former colonial rulers, such as the United Kingdom. Criminalizing the act has sometimes been used by African leaders to rally conservative support and distract from their issues. It allows them to portray themselves as upholding traditional African values. As Captain Ibrahim Traore moves forward with his agenda, the global community is watching closely. The decision to criminalize this act underscores the broader cultural and political dynamics at play in many African nations, where traditional values often clash with modern human rights standards. Laws constantly change, and many presidents intend to update their resources to reflect such changes. Burkina Faso is imposing penalties and reinforcing prejudices on the queer community, while other countries are moving towards greater acceptance and recognition. Do you think President Traore's decision is a good one for the people of Burkina Faso? Let us have your viewpoints in the comments below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the new Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in our next video.